This is the lesson 15.3 notes. This is the last chapter from the Advanced 1 book. Section 15.3 is on the percent proportion. So in chapter 15, we are looking at percent problems, and this is one really excellent strategy for solving a percent problem. So I'll read the words here, but I think these are a little confusing, and I think that looking at the numbers is going to make more sense. The words say you can present A is P% of W with the proportion A over W equals P over 100. A is the part, W is the whole, and P% is P over 100. If you look at the numbers, you already know that a percent is equal to a part divided by a whole. That's how you find percent, always. If you divide a part by a whole, you end up with a decimal, and then you move the decimal 2 places over, and that gives you the percent, right? So this is saying that if I have a percent, I can write it as the number, the percent, over 100, and then I can write the rest of the problem as part over whole, all right? And then I learned a really great trick from Miss Helen, where the part is going to be in a number sentence. The part would be closest to the is, and the whole will be closest to the word of. All right, it's just a handy little kind of trick to help you pick out which part is which and to make sure that you get your proportions set up correctly. All right, so let's look at how that works. When you want to find the percent, it'll be a problem like, what percent of 15 is 12? Okay, so I want to find what percent, and then I have of 15 is 12. So the first thing I do always is to find the percent. It says percent here, and it says what percent, so that must be what I'm trying to find out. So I'm going to call P is the percent over 100 equals, and now I need part over whole. And when I use the little is over of trick, I see that the number 12 is closest to the is, so that's the part. And the number 15 is closest to the word of, so that's the whole. Now, lots of times, the small number is the part and the larger number is the whole. But you can't use that all the time because sometimes percents are larger than 100, right? So you have to actually look at the problem and think, what's the part and what's the whole, or use the little trick, right? Then you can go ahead and solve using the cross products property. P times 15 is 15P, and 12 times 100 is 1200. And we divide by 15. P equals 80. And then looking back at the problem, I see that what I was solving for was a percent. So it's 80%. And let's see if that makes sense. Does it make sense that 12 is 80% of 15? Sure. It's more than half, and it's less than 100. So that's a reasonable answer, right? There are 2 U tries with that. Let's look at example 2. Example 2 is about finding a part. So now I want to know what number is 36% of 50. Again, the first thing you do is find the percent. It's easy to find the percent because it's the thing with the big percent sign attached to it. So the first thing you write is 36 over 100. Do that first. Then you've got 2 numbers left. You've got 50 and what number, which is the thing you're trying to find out. This what number is closest to the is. We want part over whole. and that's the is over the off. I'm going to write it like this because I don't want you to confuse that with the percent proportion. Right? But we can use, this is the little trick we use to find the is over off. So the variable goes with the is. I'm going to use an x. You can use whatever variable you want, and off 50. And then again, cross products property. So we have 100x equals 36 times 50. It's going to be half. And then I have a 0. Right, and then we will divide by 100. And x equals 18. Let's check and make sure that makes sense, right? Let's see. 18 is 36% of 50. Does that make sense? Well, let's see. 36%, that's less than half. Is 18 less than half of 50? Yes, it is. Half of 50 is 25, and 18 is less than half of that, so this is a reasonable answer. It's always good to check your answers, especially when there's lots of zeros involved. I would want to make sure that I didn't have an extra 0 in there. You have 2 you tries with this one as well. There are no tricks, except this one has a decimal, but you have a calculator, so that will not be a problem. Example 3, finding a whole. Let's read through the problem. 150% of what number is 24? Again, find the percent. That's easy because it has the percent sign. And write that part first. Then equals the part where the is over the whole, the off. Let's see, the is, oh, that's the 24, because off is attached to what number? And now cross products properties, that's 150x equals 2,400. Divide by 150. And 2,100 divided by 50. 150 is 16. Check to make sure that makes sense. So now I'm saying 150%, that's like 1.5 times something is 24. So it has to be something that's smaller than 24 so that I can take 1.5 of them and get 24, right? So that makes sense. If I have a whole 16 and then another half of 16, that gives me 24. This is a good answer. These problems are the same. And then there's the real life application that uses a graph. It says the bar graph shows the strength of the tornadoes that occurred in Alabama in 2011. The first time I read this, I thought it said tomatoes. That would have been a very silly problem indeed. All right, so it says 1% of the tornadoes were EF1s. So looking at my graph, I see that I have 58 EF1s. So I'm kind of looking for 58 is what percent of, and it needs some total, right? And so I'm going to have to go up here and find the total. But as I'm looking at these numbers, I see that they really fit together pretty nicely. If I take a 58, it pairs nicely with the 2, and then the 13 pairs nicely with the 7, and then the 29, and if I take 1 off of the 36, that would make that 30 and that 35. So those are pretty easy to add together. They make 145. Right? So now this total is 145. And let's go ahead and set up the percent. Let's see, 58 is what percent of the total of 145? So 58 is what percent of 145. The percent is what we're trying to find out. I'm going to put P over 100 equals the is 58 over the 145 is the total. In this case, it's pretty obvious which one is the whole because you added them all together and found that whole. Okay. We've got 145 P is equal to 5,800 divided by 145. And P is equal to 40. And then looking back at the problem, remember that you're looking for a percent. So 40%. Does that make sense? Let's see. 58, 40%, a little less than, well, a little bit less than half. Yes, 58 would be less than half of 145. And then I just want to read through this last problem with you, make sure you get it set up. 20% of the tornadoes occurred in central Alabama on April 27th. So this graph is all of the tornadoes that occurred in Alabama. 20% of those occurred in central Alabama on the 27th. How many tornadoes does this represent? So we want to know what number. So looking for a number of tornadoes, not percent of tornadoes. What number is 20% of 145? Okay. All right. That's it.